Well, it'll be a big night for the ogre, but I did find out that a really good friend of mine, Zero Cool, has a complete night off. He's got his time right now. If he wants to share why, he will. I'm not going to do it, but he's got all of his life to himself. And before I get right into my reason for coming in here, Zero Cool, and I think I've shared with you why that might be. I'd like your insight on a few things. I don't know. Is there anything? I know that you just got off the show with myself and Magic Bollocks and the Common Sense Guy, but maybe there's something you want to say now about the show then. And remember, we talk. Don't make a big deal about anything. Maybe you got in the mail. If you'd say they were fine, but please don't make a big deal about it, God's sake.
I guess the only thing I have to bring back up from the last show is I can't believe Johnny Depp butterfingered himself like that. I mean, damn. That was just like, wow. I mean, really, I mean, oh, it just blew me away. I'm like, you know, I like Johnny Depp movies. Any movie that Johnny Depp is in, especially if he's not hanging around Tim Burton, always seems to be really rather well because, and even if with his political side to things, I just tend to ignore it. Because Johnny Depp is one of those people that if he chooses to do so, he can be very flexible. And it just kind of bites that he doesn't have, you know, it bites when anybody doesn't have money, but when he's done it to himself, it's kind of like, damn, you know. And I'm not siding with him over his lawyers or his lawyers over him, but when somebody makes the suggestion of how to spend your money wisely, you can take it however you want, but oftentimes there's a nugget of truth, of knowledge and wisdom saying, you know, maybe you shouldn't do this because of reasons, or try not doing this. And that give you the choice to think about, you know, maybe they're onto something here. And just ouch. Ah, Johnny.
Well, how do you lose? And I can't feel bad for him.
I mean, yeah, it's his own damn fault, but still.
I mean, good sake. Look, I just would say this. Look, if I got $6 million tomorrow, $6 million, and he's made so much more, but if I got $6 million tomorrow, and you were the only person I knew that I could call, I know you well enough that I could say this. If I called you tomorrow and said, look, Zero Cool, I will give you $250,000 of this $6 million and that's not nearly what a financial advisor takes, but I will give you $250,000 if you tell me how to live for the next 40 years with this money. Holy shit. I mean, would that be a difficult job for you? Well, and also, but what, even though now that you answered, would that be a difficult job? If I didn't take your advice, should I be able to sue you? So 2 questions. Would that be a difficult job? And should I be able to sue you if I don't take your advice?
Well, honestly, to answer the second one first, I hope you wouldn't take my advice. I think you would consider it and make your own decision so that you wouldn't have to get bent out of shape and thinking that you would have to sue me for anything. And secondly, I think I would just reiterate my earlier sentiment is silver and gold are all good, but invest in people. And also move to a place to where you know you can keep that money and it can last for a while. You know, meaning in the Midwest here, if somebody gets, you know, give or take $6 million plus, they're not they're going to find a way, obviously, how to make sure that they don't get it taxed every 5 seconds by putting it into a family trust and metered and, you know, measured out per week of what they can have. But they're also really going to we have the mindset here in the Midwest trying not to blow money out left, right, and center because we know that it's probably going to be a one shot and we don't want to not have it in case we need it. So I would think that you being who you are, you would know this already.
Well, yeah, but I kind of wanted, you know, and I'm hoping that you would assume that I was a moron like someone that we're talking about.
There's a lot of morons out there, and I think we're all stupid in our own way. But I think, again, once you get past a certain age in life, you either have it figured out or you don't. I honestly, I can't do 99% of the things that you do. I don't know how to farm. if a zombie apocalypse were to ever happen and I, got out and found you, I'd be like, yeah, sure. You know how to do your farm stuff. I'd still have to go out and help earn the keep as part of the place. But, I'd want you to teach me so that when you said, yeah, you're going to have to do this to make sure that it works. Yeah, great. I'm going to listen to you. And I think that's the problem that we have as people is massive communication breakdown. It's getting, and it has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with, do we want to make the choice of listening to somebody's advice? Do we want people's advice, and how to perceive a person's advice, even if we don't want it or we do want it? And then, of course, if you do give advice, it's how you say it. Sometimes tiptoeing around is a good thing, and sometimes being overly blunt is a good thing too. It just depends on the situation. And what we're falling behind in recently as Americans is tact, using tact. And that's unfortunately the bane of social media, is we do not have tact. Because even though social media can be used in a positive manner, I always refer to Gab and Twitter as text messaging. It's the problem with text messaging. There's no inflection of tone in your words. I could tweet you, Ogre, and say, hey, this was really great. And you may read it as, oh, he's really excited about it. Or I say, hey, man, that was a boneheaded move. You may read it as, oh, he's really pissed off at me. It's like, well, no, that's not the intention. It's kind of like, oh, crap, it's with text messaging. The inflection of a person's
tone. The pathos is getting lost.
Yes, exactly. So, so to roundabout, I would say if you won $6 million, I would say let your state take out their portion, and you'd lose your half because the state and the government are going to get theirs, and then put it in a trust to where you can't get taxed on it and you don't ever have to report it, and have whatever your state allows for a one-time gift to your spouse. Because worse comes to worse, something happens where the remainder goes bye-bye. She has that portion, and she can say, well, don't worry about it. We've got this over here sitting in this trust as well.
All right, Andy Dufresne, but that don't work nowadays. That's an old school thing.
That's old school? Well,
I mean, you can still, now look, you can still give your wife, but I was only teasing you because the only time I've ever heard someone say that in public was on the Shawshank Redemption. But today, I think what you can give your wife untaxable, I haven't looked it up, and I'm not going to bother. If somebody cares to out there is listening to us, you can. I think it's like 8,000, 10 grand. Oh, so the idea that we're going up to that kind of money, no. Because I know when people would think, like, well, Andy Dufresne says it was like 40 grand, so no. And I'm sorry, Zero, and I'm going to get you on point because I know you and I know me. And what the topic tonight is going to be about will take you the entirety of whatever we have left when you're done with what you're saying here to go about.
I'm actually, that's what I would say. What to do with $6 million is try to make sure.
I just can't feel bad because my point was I can't feel bad for him.
I can't feel bad for him either. It's a pity, but it's his own damn fault.
Yeah, it's a damn pity that you didn't have the money and I wasn't advising you, or vice versa, because we both would have made money. What comes down to is his lawyers told him, like we said earlier, you can't have 10 $5 million mansions and run them, Johnny Depp. You might think that you have that kind of money, but you don't.
Doesn't that of ego where he's told he can't have it, so he automatically does it, which is what humans are bound to do in being dumbasses?
Well, some humans, Zero, but I don't think you would do that. I know I wouldn't do that. Maybe it's the Jew in me. Maybe it's the scared Jew that thinks I'm going to die old and alone in an old folks home with somebody I don't know wiping my ass. I don't know.
Trying to figure out what the hell I would do with 5 houses. I have one now. It's kind of like I still have empty rooms. It's like we need to do something. Like what? What are we going to do with this?
Right. So in other words, everybody
just take one of them and turn them into a studio for herself. That's what people do.
And that's my point, is that no, because here's the thing is we could talk about ego, but you and I don't have the kind of egos that you just said it, bro. You just said it. If you had 5 houses in your financial advisor, I'm just going to guess, but correct me if I'm wrong. If you had 5 houses and your financial advisor, 10 in Johnny's case, and your financial advisor said you can't afford these, I'm assuming you'd sell some off. I'm also assuming that if you had that many houses, that of course your daughter, which I only know you have one child, but your daughter and her, whoever, the ones that you love, your mother, your father, they would have mansions, and so that would be 1, 2, 3. Look, Lily, shut up, sit down.
Woof.
That would be enough. I would just say this: these people, the Al Frankens, the Judge Moores. I use them both examples because these people, they get so up and high and mighty, Zero Cool, that they don't grasp reality. If I was running for any office and a bunch of girls came forward and said I did something wrong, I wouldn't try to save face by continuing to run and saying, even if I didn't, especially if I didn't do it, I would just say, well, obviously, and I would run again. I would just say, obviously, this time around, there's a bunch of people that hate me and what I stand for. And I have to leave the stage now, turning it over to who Judge Moore should have said, but he was a dipshit. And scuttlebutt it out of there. Not because the accusations were correct, Zero. In fact, much to the opposite, because they were incorrect. But these people, I mean, they get the idea. Folks get the idea. The Johnny Depps, the Judge Moores, the dare I say, the Trumps. I love Trump, but dare I say the Trumps of the world? They get the idea that they got to stand up for making themselves look good, and I disagree with that. And maybe I don't have much. I'm not going to prod you on that because I think that we're.
No, yeah. I think that's where I said earlier on the other live stream is where you take time to invest in people. If I were to be able to do that, it's like, okay, I know that in my city people need a place to live. I could be a landlord. Why not? If you know, that's kind of like why I said about Oprah is like she makes money and she invested in other things, and then she makes more money off of that, and then she saves herself a buttload of problems with ever getting in debt about certain things. Theoretically, but that's one of the things you do. If you have the capability of, like, if I was Johnny Depp and I had the capability of having 5 fucking mansions, I wouldn't worry about having mansions. I would say, okay, well, you know, maybe I don't want to do, you know, acting forever. Maybe I want to invest in real estate. That's what you do. You invest in people and you invest in things that continually generate revenue.
And I'm so thankful for everybody here. We're going to get into the discussion proper here very quickly, but I'm going to say a couple things before we do. Number one, thank you, Aunt Jack. Aunt Jack, I will look at my email. And Aunt Jack, I'm so glad you're here. You know, I've known you for a long time over there at the Britishers channel. I'm sure I'll see you over there in the near future. Whether or not I say anything over there, just understand that I'll be there, and will always tell the Britisher, well done. But this right here, I know you know who Holly Seelger is, Zero Cool. I sent Holly Seelger a little bit of thing, and I know I said it earlier, but I'm going to say this every live stream I do for a little bit. I'm just going to encourage everyone here to go by Holly Seelger's channel, Zoan Politicon. I'm going to very quickly look it up right now and zip back and give you the link for those very loyal 6 of you now that are here. Go on by there if you haven't already and sub. I'm thinking Zero has. What a great girl. And if you do decide to send her a little bit of something, now I sent her a donation through the mail. I put a bunch of $1 bills because I just was going on a joke she put on her thing. I love ones and she loves divisions of 7. So I came over the division of 7 in my mind. I won't say what that particular division was, but it was about this thick in $1 bills. And I put it in an envelope and I sent it to her. And I don't think it was the number of ones. I'm just saying that if you are that cool and you enjoy Holly's stuff, now, of course, I'm not just begging for money like I do for Common Sense Guy and myself sometimes. It's a little humbling, but I do. But right now, I'm just saying that if you do send her that little bit of thing, Zero, look, she sent me this. This is from Hallmark. She sent me a little Hallmark dove with a, you know, to hang from my tree that I don't have because I'm Jewish. I don't have a tree. I celebrate Hanukkah. I do have a menorah in the other room, but
around your puppy.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I should put it on a thing. But I can't tell you how much. I can't tell you how much that means to me. It's something that I would like to think that Zero Cool and Common Sense Guy myself, because Zero Cool, whether you like it or not, you've made me money. You being on this show, people do donate sometimes. I'm not asking anyone here to donate now. people were very generous last Friday. Donated 50 quid last Friday night. To me, it was very humbling. It was awe-inspiring to me. And yes, I give the PIN number tomorrow, and I won't even know what money is there. And yes, it'll be all but it's still, I see it happen. And it's humbling. So look, I want to quickly, now that I'm feeling very weird talking about money and all that, I'm just saying, look, go to Holly Silver. You see her thing there. Did I send it out there? Yes. Did I send it out there? I'm sure. Oh, yeah. There's just people talking. Yes, I did. So I'm sending out there. You look at Holly Silver. Send her 7 $1 bills and a thing. You'll see. Next Christmas, you'll get something from Holly. It was, and she sent, like, I'm not gonna dig it out of the trash now, but she sent it in a really nice envelope too. So there you go, Zero. I'm so sorry I used you again, like I often do. You're so cool. I very seldom talk. You're a lot like myself. I send you a message and 2 days later you'll respond. You send me a message and a day later. Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're bosom buddies, but I tell you, you're always there for me, Zero. I have to say that, and thank you so much for letting me do that again. So here's the big question for the night, Zero Cool. I remember being a youth, you know, I remember 1984 like it was yesterday, man. I remember walking up to Salem's Grocery and getting the next copy of X-Men, you know, got my money in my hand. I remember walking up there. I like DC also, getting the next detective comics, and looking at Batman was a good one. I loved Daredevil. I loved all these things. So this is the question. I will narrow it down as we go. But in your mind, has culture changed? Am I getting old and just looking back in rose-colored glasses? Are there still these? Because I want to also interject this. It seems like all this technology. I mean, to you and I, technology was a comic book. We'd open it, we'd smell it. You could see the pulp in the paper, and you're reading this book that someone illustrated. So am I getting old, or have things changed? Should we still be able to draw lessons from our, I'm having a hard time putting a name on it. If that's not enough, I'll keep going, but I'm hoping that I gave you enough prodding to go on now. What's happened to our culture, Zero Cool?
Everything changes. That's the only constant in life is change. And no, I don't think you're seeing things through rose-colored glasses. I think you like what you like, as I would say to anybody else. We're from a unique generation, to where there were generations before us that didn't ever even know what a microchip was, to the generation. You know, oddly enough, my parents are from the silent generation. They're still around. They've seen the rise of the computer. They've seen the rise of the internet, and the decline and fall of malls and social standards of certain types. And one thing my mom said to me was that, you know, computers are great. You know, she has a Kindle Fire. She likes it, and she gets to play her games because she doesn't want to futz at the computer all day. But she says, you know, one of the things that people, you know, malls are in decline and basically extinct, which is too bad because, you know, it was one of those things for people to get out and do things and converse and everything, as opposed to everybody doing everything over computers now. And I said, well, that's just the way it is. She goes, yeah. But there's nothing wrong with yearning for the old ways, because we can still take value from it. It's what the value that we take from it to give to the future generations, because they're not going to have malls. They're not going to have the things that we have. And we are going to be looked at as ancient, and that's just the way it is. But we're from that generation that first had the iPad, that first had the iPod, that had the first cell phones. We had a bunch of technological firsts that generations before us didn't have, as to where generations before us had mechanical first that we now take for everyday granted, such as the microwave, such as a blender or a washing machine, you know, because of stuff like that, even if they've been computerized to help supposedly do things better with their functions. No, there's nothing wrong with being nostalgic. It's just whether or not you can understand the fact that change is the only constant. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. And yeah, culture does change.
No, wait. Before you go on, please don't lose your train of thought. But you said there's nothing wrong with nostalgia. Are you sure you would stick with that, sir?
Yeah, I would. Because I, as a dad, especially music nostalgia. I love the fact that I have 8 tracks, cassette tapes, and LPs, and I also have CDs, and I have digital downloads. And I can talk to my daughter about, this is when this album came out, it was on this, and this is how it sounds. And then we can go into the music format and have a mass discussion about that. And there's nothing wrong with it. Nostalgia is okay. We just can't let it drown us thinking it's the only thing. We have to share our nostalgia with younger folk if they choose to want it that way.
Okay, and I want you to carry on. I think of nostalgia as the root, very meaning of the word, which is a yearning, a very deep desire to be in the past. And I understand that most people, when they think of nostalgia, they think, oh, they smell something and suddenly they're somewhere else. That's part of it. But nostalgia, I will maintain before you continue, that it's very dangerous. So carry on, and it was good to hear your take on it, though. I hope that everyone thinks of nostalgia the way you just said it, because that's good.
And honestly, that's the only way that I think of it, because you can't. I can't remember who coined the phrase, but you can't ever go home again. No. And I don't remember who coined it, but I remember it from...
wasn't it Steinbeck? Steinbeck, you can't go home again?
So. But I remember it from Grosse Pointe Blank, where John Cusack's character is calling Dr. Oates and says, I guess it's true, Dr. Oates, you can never go home again.
What a great... Just carry. That's why I've got you on here about culture. Because culture for us is Grosse Pointe Blank. It's these movies and comic books and all these things that we love that are being destroyed. And to me, it's like watching a Bible being pissed on.
But you also know that the younger generation, when they grow up, they're looking back at things and they're starting to realize, oh my God, this wasn't as great as what I thought it was. While I like it, there are things that are older that were better for whatever reasons they deemed them better. And that's just a continual circle of the way it is. I always thought that growing up in the 1980s was the be-all, end-all. And then my dad said, no, seriously, you should have been living in the 50s when I was a teenager. And I would say, why would I want to do that? And he basically brought up so many things that were great. He said, well, people got taxed less. People had vehicles that were reliable more than anything. They were sturdy, strong. People were able to get out and do things, socialize more. And even though... Now, going back to music, even though there wasn't the variety that there was in the 1980s, it was still there, and it was something that was new to most people, and it was fresh, because rock and roll, which is the spinoff of jazz and blues, was becoming a physical object on record, and you had blues records, jazz records, and all these things that were coming out before being recorded, and you can say, oh my God, that's great. And it just, of course, built up from there. But my dad wasn't wrong in that entirety either. I think I would have got a kick out of living in the 50s and the early 60s, but I was blessed to be in the 80s, to where I had the culmination of everything that came before, and which helped build to everything.
Yeah, but you and I would have fit so good back there in the days of Howard and Lovecraft.
We'd been greasers.
We'd been greasers for sure, but we'd have been greasers reading pulp magazines, drinking purple Jesuses while we were getting blowjobs by ugly girls.
Well, I don't know about that part, but I do know that the dark side to everything is that people have so much technology and everything at their disposal that they wouldn't know what to do without it. And I think that's, again, why my Generation Xers are the people that are like, yeah, we were at the turning point of all these things, and yes, if we had to, we would know how to go without those things.
So is there anything that, oh no, go ahead. If I stop you, carry on.
All I was going to say is that if like I woke up tomorrow and my computer wasn't working, it'd be like, from my viewpoint, it's like, oh, I like my computer and I'll miss it, but I have to be patient and get it fixed or get another one. It's not going to be a Veruca Salt moment. Daddy, I want it and I want it now, because that ain't going to fucking happen.
Well, I happen to know that's true, because your computer just crashed about 3-4 months ago. I don't remember when, but you had some computer problems, and I remember getting something. You said something from your phone. It was something to the effect of, "Ogre, my computer's fucked. I won't be around for a few days. I'll tell you when it's up. It was something like that. It wasn't nothing like, oh, my life is over.
Oh yeah, I was severely irritated. I had to go get a new desktop, but it's kind of like, well, what kind of desktop do I want? Do I want to spend the money? And it's more of those practical things as opposed to, I want something right now and I don't care what it is, and then bitch about it later because it's not what I wanted.
One of my favorite comic books ever. It almost got sent and shipped off in a package to somebody. And I shipped off like 10 packages the other day, so you can guess whose it may have been. But it was somebody that liked comic books. I almost sent it off, but it's so chewed up and used, and it's not just because of the story. It's because this is like Death, Thou Shalt Die. That's like the name of the story on the inside is Death, Thou Shalt Die. And of course, you've got the robot telling the story of Thor. And it's not just the story of him, Dal. And I mean, it's got them all in this one, you know, Lady Sif, they're all fighting this blobby thing, and they're going through, and they've got to get Loki. So it's a whole big thing. I mean, look at this artistry in this. Look at that blobby thing. I have read this comic book starting from the day it was printed, probably 50 times. And this is what I'm talking about. I want to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with me. I'm not going to ask you if you've ever read something that many times, or if you're my age and when Ghostbusters came out on VHS, which was so amazing back then, if you were getting with your friends in school saying, I've watched it 50 times. Well, I've watched it, you know, and it all good. But is there something wrong with me that I love this culture so much? And I'm using myself as an example just because I want to hear this from you, Zero. Why would a person, let me ask you a different way. Why would a human being read this silly 30-cent comic book 50 times? Is our culture that important?
I think it's the same reason we listen to a song over and over again. The same reason that we watch specific movies over and over again is because we always find something new in it. Even if I can watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I know exactly everything that's going to happen. I know exactly who's going to die. I know how it's going to end. I know who's going to say what. The first time I saw them all in a row, I saw them all in theaters, but it's like it just, was out of my mind in about 5 minutes because my brain doesn't hold that much in regards to, that's what thankfully DVDs and Blu-rays are for. But when I sat down and watched them all back to back, I was awestruck, and I just wanted to get from point A to point B and just have a fantastic thrill ride. And when I watched them a second time through, a third time through, a fourth time through, I started dissecting it, not because I was critical. It's because I want to pay more attention to this character over here, or I want to pay more attention to this situation over here. And that's what you do with books, movies, and music. You find something new to you about it.
Yes.
And even if it becomes old hat, you know that you enjoy it.
Oh, but it never becomes old hat if you find that new nuance. I just opened this up because I don't want to get it wrong now. Oh, Matt Barkley, who just got out of some bad trouble not too long ago. I don't want to say it again. If he wants to tell you, he'll tell you what it was. But yes, Thor has always been one of my favorites too. This I just took out of its sheath for the first time in probably 10 years. This is one I won't read too many times. If you wonder why, look up Thor number 295 in mint condition, and you'll see why. It's one. I don't know why this particular one, or suddenly the Storm Giants was popular, but there are some that's very popular. So I'm now going to slip this back in. And I'm only stopping you because I like to talk too, Zero. And it's so stupid because I should let you carry on. I like the sound of my own voice. I'm going to ask you once again, and I want you to just go on, because it's not that you didn't answer, that you dodged. I'm just going to ask you again. We think about culture. We think of Da Vinci, and we think of Leonardo. We think of all these things. We think of, the architect. We think of all these things. Why should we discount our culture so quickly? why is it okay to twist our culture? And before I go too in depth on that, I think you know what I mean. Why is it okay to change what was a Puerto Rican to a white guy? Or what, you know what I mean? Why is it okay to twist our culture? Is this less of a thing than the Sistine Chapel? I'm not joking either. I'm asking you serious because I
No,
know
it's
my
not.
answer.
No, it's not, because one thing that people don't understand about comic books is comic books are the last holy invention in regards to literature to strictly America. Now, and if people want to argue with me on this out in chat, you're going to lose. I'll tell you this why. Because we created, now everybody's had scrolls. Japan's had scrolls, China had scrolls. Everybody's had their ways of telling stories. But America came up with the comic strip first. And then one day it was thought of, let's put these 4 comic strips that were in the paper, put them in a paper format and make a comic book and sell it that way to get more money out of and more mileage for money. And so, and Japan in manga actually took that from us, but because they read their wording, their kanji differently, which is why they to us are printed backwards. But comic books are a wholly American idea, and it's one of our last things that, as an American culture, exist. And the people that want to change things are the people that are trying to that are revisionists and try to rewrite history, and they don't want. They have their own problems, which we're not going to get into here.
No, because I was going to ask you what reason, but go ahead. If we're not going to get into it, that's fine. I just wonder, why would people want to steal this from you and I and the others of us? Crumple Point should be here. I'm actually
pure censorship.
If it's okay with you, I am going to see if I can get a hold of Crumple Point.
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can get a hold of him. But that don't mean quit talking, Zero. I'm just going to go do that now while you talk, bro. We got people watching us right now. I need
to get some water. I'm getting a little dry.
Okay, well, let me speak while you do. We're gonna look. The reason I'm gonna, as Zero Cool goes, because man, I tell you, everybody watching here, I'm not gonna toot my own horn. I'm just gonna say this: if you want, and I will not mention any names with this, but if you want to, you know, just a dung heap, well, you can have it, and you can have, you know, I've done it here in the past. You can have 50 people on at once, or the whole 9, whatever it is, every 9 people, and you can have people cross talking. Zero Cool is one of the reasons I don't do that anymore. And he didn't berate me. He actually did a little video, I think, or a live stream on Crosstalk. And I started thinking about that. I was like, yeah, you know, the one best way to keep down on Crosstalk is to have tops 4 people. And that way, everyone can let everyone else get their say and then some, and then have their say and then some. And there's no reason for somebody thinking I was abridged. You know, my ideas were sanctioned. My, you know, what I thought should happen or should be said was cut short. None of that stuff happens, man. We can just have a good time. So, I just want to remind everybody, we're doing culture. I also want to remind everybody, as I look up, oh man, you know what? I don't have common sense, guys. I don't have his PayPal. Oh man, I got to get that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in fact, I believe if I do this, I might have it. What I'm going to say is, anybody tonight, which I'm sure everyone here is one of those people that wants to donate anything to the Common Sense Guys Computer Fund, you can feel free to do that. Just don't do it in a super chat tonight, because I can't split it with Zero Cool in any good way. By the time we take the hit from the super chat demons that come and steal their, 10%, I don't know how I would split it with Zero, and he's not here to make any money anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I wouldn't let you split it with me anyway. I do this strictly for enjoyment.
Right. And what would we do? We split $5. I mean, by the time the end of it's over, we can't even get a cup of coffee. It's not that. It's about a thing. So I'm sending this out here. So all of you, I'm sure that you were just dying and getting in line and pounding the door down to send a super chat. So if that's the case, or not the case, which is much more likely, I'm going to send something out here about the Common Sense Guys channel. You can always swing by there. Watch one of his videos. Just please watch channel updates. A pretty good one. Just put up 8 hours ago. He'll tell you a little bit of stuff about what's going on. You'll actually get to see him It is a face reveal, but not the first one, so I don't think I could. My long diatribe. I was just waiting for you to get a drink of water. Comes Zero Cool. So man, I'm like my mother. It's like British, and then the last one I'll be is like Zero Cool. I had 7 brothers and sisters. Being the youngest, while my mom was beating me, I heard all my brothers' names before I got, it was like Ogre and beat me. So I got that. So go check that out. And if you care to, remember we're raising funds for him to get a computer. Why? Because we want to serve you better. So we're here on Culture. That was a commercial, folks. I feel like I should bend down and suck Satan's cock now.
No.
I mean, it was a commercial no matter how I want to look at it, Zero. I'm trying to justify it and do it cool, but good Lord. I'm just
when you're actually asking people to donate, they can choose to donate, and it's actually going to help out a fellow YouTuber. It's not gratification. It's actually genuinely meant to help somebody out. Now I'll tell you the reason why I never donate. 1, I don't have the money. 2, why? I like people. Don't get me wrong.
Thanks for that. I'm not gonna let you carry. Don't derail everybody, but I'm gonna say this: you donate whether you like it or not. Common sense. I would never. I don't. Because you donate very heavily to this channel, and you have. I can't. I'll be honest. I can't afford to pay you for what you do here, what you're doing here now. At the caliber you're working at, we're talking about $175, $200 an hour. I can't afford to pay you. So thank you for being here.
Knowledge, wisdom, and life experience. What do you expect? But
well, I'm not joking. I mean, to get someone you have a very good voice, very good radio voice for sure. You know how to fill time. You know how to do your thing. So I'm just telling you, $200 an hour would actually be like bargain basement, dirt cheap. So I look at it this way: you do kick in, man. Plenty, Zero. I don't kick in either. That said, I just feel guilty, I guess, right now, because I give a few bucks a month. I won't say how much to Common Sense Guy. Butter gets a very small amount per video, but she never makes videos, and she does. She's on my list, but she never makes videos. If you did, Butter, I'd up the amount per video. And there's just some others. But also, I must admit, you have a channel. You don't even have a thing. So let's get back on this. I just feel weird. Thank you. I had to do it. You were gone, Zero, so I did a fucking commercial. I even said I was
nothing wrong with doing a commercial, especially if it benefits to help somebody out getting something fixed. Because Lord knows we all need the occasional grabbing by the scruff and getting back on our feet or right on track.
Oh, and
I actually had to go get some water because I was getting a dry throat here.
Yeah, no, and you'll take over right now. But if we can get him a good computer, I can quit being everything, because Common Sense is actually better than me at a lot of things that I do. So if he could do them, but he can't because he's on this shitty laptop. So we're carrying on. I want to say this. As Christmas approaches, before we go on to Culture again, and we're going to hear some really cool stuff from Zero Cool, you folks that are here. And Zero, you can see how many people are here. It's not like church, which is spur of the moment, but you folks that are here, you're getting it live. The rest of you that watch this later, and because you're watching afterwards, fuck you and your families. No, I'm just teasing. But it comes down to this. When this time of the year rolls around, Zero Cool, a lot of people put themselves out and do dumb shit and then end up hurting because of it. Don't do that for us, for anyone. Take care of yourself. And now we're back on to at this festive time of the year, Mr. Zero. I've noticed that our culture's dwindling. We're being told, actually, it's beyond we're being told that we have no culture. And I'm not saying white.
It's mental retardation of the globalists thinking that, like people with Justin Trudeau, thinking that diversity is our strength. America has been diverse since day one. We don't need to continually get rid of our culture just because people don't like the color of their skin tone. You know what I've seen in my lifetime? I've seen the black culture. I've seen American culture. I've seen Native American culture. I've seen Latino culture, and I've seen white culture, if you want to go that route. All those things make America great. And to continually have outside people tell us that we need to get rid of our culture. No, that's not even normally the way it works. In fact, a lot of people owe America a big, huge thanks because they've basically taken what we've created over the past 50 years and utilized it for themselves. We're the ones, for example, we're the ones who invented the microwave. And now how many people use it? Yeah, you're welcome. We're the ones that invented the comic book format. Not scrolls or anything, but yeah, people use that worldwide. You're welcome. Think about every single thing that Americans have made. Peanut butter was created by George Washington Carver, a black man.
Sir. Yes, sir.
How many people in this world now use peanut butter?
Everybody, baby.
Yeah, you're welcome, everybody out there. That's part of our culture. We had what you would say a black man created peanut butter, which kids eat if they're not allergic to peanuts, which whatever. But you get the general idea. A basic, average food stuff that was created by a man who was an American, who was not a slave. He was a free man, if you want to get technical. And he created a food stuff that everybody used, that everybody now in the world knows when you use the, it goes together like peanut butter and jelly or peanut butter and chocolate. Yeah, you're welcome. America created that. We don't have to change our culture. We need everybody else out there to understand to knock it off. Japan doesn't change their culture. China doesn't change their culture.
I just love that you pick peanut butter too, because let's face it, man, all this stuff going on right now, zero cool, man. What can I ask you a question? And there's no trick question. I just want to hear how you answer it. What is one way you can look at a human being on this soil and absolutely know they're probably American? If there's like 99% chance by looking at them, not said a word.
I would say whether or not how we slouch.
Now, I would say if he's black, if he's on American soil and he's black, there's a much better chance that before he opens his mouth that you know that's a brother American. Now, if they're white, they could be from all over. They could, and they could even be Spanish. Who knows? But the one thing I say, all this division over all this stuff, zero cool. You and I know one thing when we're in the Quad Cities. If you see a black guy, he's an American. The whole thing about, I just love that you used George Washington Carver. I mean, our culture here, the whole idea of black Christmas and Black Month and all this stuff. No, it's America. It's America. And you know where I'm probably going with this, man. Why can't I think of his name right now? The guy that was played Red in the same movie. Morgan Freeman. Remember Morgan Freeman's words as I turn this back over to you. Our culture, brother, is our culture. You know, quit calling me a white man. Not you, but you know what I mean. Quit calling me a white man. Understand that what Zero said right now, as I got to turn it back over to him because I don't know what other poignant thing he's going to say. No, this is our culture. Black, white, everybody here in the United States. Don't take it from us. Don't say we don't have any culture because that's just the beginning. So what if it all ended? You were mentioning some things here, Zero. You know, of course, America, and I hate to go in the race white and black, and I just did. So I'm just going to say America, and you'll know what I mean. America started racism. We did all these bad things. Isn't there something good? Should we give up everything that is noble about our culture based on manifest destiny?
America didn't start racism. Racism started back long before America was ever a country, and they had the slave trade. That was starting with the Romans. That was starting with the Roman Catholic Church, Spain, France, Italy, and the Roman Empire, let alone before you get to the Saxons and the Anglo-Saxons and everything else, so on and so forth. America didn't start racism. We unfortunately became so stupid that we've highlighted it in spades. No pun intended. But the thing that that the world over seems to forget is because America is such a melting pot, this is how we have American culture, because we have a smorgasbord of greatness. We have a smorgasbord of greatness that comes from Chinese, people that moved over here, Asians on a whole, black folk that have been here, that have lived here, that are part of Americana. Doesn't matter what your skin tone is, your history, your nationality is. You are an American, but what your descendants, what your ancestors came over and brought, helped make Americana, not necessarily the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Archie, Betty, and Veronica type stuff. That's just a book making money.
And that's always been a crock of crap, hadn't it?
Exactly. I grew up and I think that the height of Americana was the 1980s, because if you really think about it, we had, in the 40s, this couldn't happen because we were so segregated, and thank Christ we got rid of that stupid shit. We couldn't have somebody like Michael Jackson, who influenced people, regardless of the skin tone, to go into music or to, just be the best American they could be. Saying, hey,
80s was beautiful, man. We had LL Cool J.
Yeah, we had
Beastie Boys.
We had good music all the way around, regardless of what your skin tone is. We had good rap, we had good rock, we had good pop, we had good metal, and everybody was listening to everything.
Everything.
And now you get judged on. If your skin tone, if you listen to a certain genre. I'm 42 years old. I am a white guy. I listen to Too Short. If anybody doesn't like that, kiss my butt. I was listening to long before you were probably born.
No, that's the good stuff. Now you're going way back, because I like Sugar Hill Gang and I mean, at my favorite. If I was to have to pick one person that I was getting music from, it would be KRS-One. I love KRS-One, man. But wah da da dang, wah da 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 dang. Whoa! Listen to my 9mm go bang. I mean, all that weird techno stuff in the early 80s. I was that kid. I went to a military school for a little while, and it was 6 black boys with us 5 white boys and 1 Mexican. They kept it very diverse intentionally. And I tell you what, man, we were all from, I guess what people would call, I don't know what they'd call us. My parents paid a lot of money for me to be there. Whatever. But it was so, man, I got to let you go on this. What happened to that? Now
What happened to that?
Yes.
What happened to that is.
And you know what I mean by that, right?
What happened to that was
what is that and what happened? Wait. Hang on now, please, Zero. Please, I know I'm posing on you, but please, you got the time. What is that, and what happened to it? The thing that you please stay on this, and we don't have to make it race. I just don't know. Please, what is that, and what happened to it?
What it was a train of thought, an actual train of thought of really being open-minded. And what happened was everything became strictly politicized. That's all it was. It has nothing to do with the person's skin tone, and not always specifically a person's religious belief. It was an age of enlightenment. It reached its peak, and as with everything else, we went through a paradigm shift, and we reached the top of the mountain. We're going back down into the valley, and again, we'll get to the point of climbing, and we'll get to the point of slowly climbing uphill. The problem is baby boomers. I'm not slamming the entire generation, but they are the generation that is the first me generation, that it's all about them, and they didn't have to do certain things, and they started walking away from so-called traditions, which, by the way, I will bring race into this for a very specific point, because I do see a lot of people still doing this. I noticed that a lot of Latino families, a lot of Asian families are still together because they stick to those traditions which all Americans once had, which was to be married, be happy, be faithful, be loyal to your spouse, and if you had problems, you worked them out. Because nothing is ever perfect, but we wanted to work things out. The baby boomers came along. They're the ones that pretty much divorces always happen, don't get me wrong, but they're the ones that basically got away with it without being shamed. They're the ones that promoted the identity of self over family and the community. And unfortunately, it was like a virus that spread to every inch of America. That's what happened. That's what it was. It was an age of enlightenment. We reached the top. We're down in the valley now, all because it's been politicized, and that's how people are basically taking it, making money, and
So it's politics.
no, it's baby boomers. This is their last.
And I understand. I got the baby boomers thing. I got it. And if you want to reiterate and think I'm taking away from that, reiterate. But what I'm saying is, so you and I, we come from this generation you're speaking of. This, man, I'm going to say it, the 80s, where
Gen Xers.
Where I mean, the last thing that mattered was what race you were. It wasn't even an issue. It was never an issue. So let me ask you this, Zero, because a lot of people would say, oh, Zero put his money where his mouth is. We all know, you said it on air, that your daughter is a wonderful lesbian girl that I believe has a girlfriend or whatever, a partner, and I think everything's going well for her. But
no,
what is that? I have no idea. I have no idea about how it's going for her. I'm just saying, I was just trying to put a good picture on it. So what if that girl, same girl, let's not even make her a different orientation. What if she brought a black girl home? Would that matter to you at all?
Considering my wife's black and looks like Stacey Dash, no.
Your wife's black?
Yeah, I've mentioned that 2 or 3 times before.
I guess you have, Zero. I'm sorry. I guess you have. But you know what? To people like you and I, this is how much, and now that you said that, I mean, yes, but to people like you and I, it don't matter. It doesn't. People, they say, oh, you can't be colorblind. I'm not talking about colorblind as in I don't see Zero Cool's wife as black. I see you there sitting here with her, right? And I'm looking and, oh, yeah, this woman's obviously black. I'm just saying that I'm sitting there with Zero Cool. We got a couple Rolling Rocks. His old lady's got a nice looking booty. He's, my wife's got, and we're all there and no one gives a shit. This is the whole thing about culture. How do we get back, if there's any way, or is it not possible? Can we get back to the time when us that are peers forget? Because look, if it was so important, wouldn't I remember that, Zero? And yes, you've said it. Once you said it, yes, of course, I remember you saying it. That's how important it is to me. And I've been look, I'm going to ramble on, and this is your show. I've been accused of being a white supremacist. Who gives a shit? And how can we get back to that?
It's just the natural course of things. Like I've said, we're in a paradigm shift right now about a lot of things, and we can pinpoint where it started. We can pinpoint why and how it started, and it has to change because we want it to change. And one of the biggest ways to make any real positive change is to really just not get bent out of shape over things. Here, let me give a little info on me, and I'm not going to go too long on this. My wife is black. My daughter's would be considered mulatto but there's really no good word for it. She is my, she's my daughter, and she is who she is. Her sexual orientation is that she is lesbian. I wouldn't care if she brought home a black girl. I wouldn't care if she brought home a Latino girl or an Asian girl. It's the fact that she's my child and I love her, and I respect she has to be who she has to be. And that's the biggest problem. People are intentionally diversifying for the sake of wanting to be hip, cool, or whatever the paradigm demands, that they're willing to sacrifice everything else instead of letting people just be people without enforcing their will upon anybody else about anything. That's our biggest bane in American society right now. That's what takes away from our American culture, no matter what it is, whether it be music, movies, books, whatever have you. And it's just genuinely terrible. And the only way we're going to get through it is when we basically say to people, it's really the old adage of, if somebody's got, when somebody calls you a name, you just turn around and you walk away. And they're going to call you names and call you names and call you names and call you names. And you really do ignore them. Because then they're going to go somewhere else and they're going to leave you alone. That's what it's really got to be.
Well, should there be a law there, though? I mean,
why? Laws for what?
Hang on, just bear with me, and you answer the question however you want, and understand that I'm just playing the host. So should there be some law? I mean, shouldn't there be something there to protect you against those things? And if not, why not?
What would a law do? I love people, and I'm not running you over on this. I love how people think the first thing that there has to be is a law. Okay, if there is a law, how about one of using goddamn sense? one of the biggest problems that we've ever had is in enacting a law or a rule or a regulation thinking that it needs to be a process of control, when in reality, if you leave something alone, such as when I'm at the gym and I see a rather hefty person working out for their first time, I'm going to go up to them. I'm going to say, hey, is this your first day here? And they're like, yeah. I said, all right, keep up. Keep it. Just keep on coming. Do what you got to do. Don't listen to what anybody else says. Anybody gives you a hassle, you find me, you find the staff, we got your back. What happens is you get a muscle-bound meathead or some little hipster dipshit verbally abuses the person who's trying to lose weight or the first timer there. Well, technically on the books, we have laws against, we have anti-bullying laws in the YMCA. Do we need those? No. They only reflect what's going on in society because everybody thinks that they're special and that they are going to be the next superstar or whatever, and that their feelings are important above everybody else's. When it comes to the fact that when a person is verbally degrading somebody, that person who's doing the verbal degradation doesn't need to be recited rules. They basically need to be told by everybody else, hey, knock your bullshit off. This is not what we're here. You need to just follow the rules of the gym, which is work out, be safe, and do things at your own pace and not waste people's time. That's pretty much what life is about. I don't get along with everybody on the planet, and that's okay. I have a friend of mine. I was talking to her today when and her ex was there. I don't really like him, but I'm not going to give him any static. That's just the way it is. He has a right to be there. He's not bothering me. I'm not bothering him. We can get along without getting along, and that's a mentality that we've lost. That is why we have the problems that we have. So laws and regulations, to an extent, are helpful because they are there to really help us realize, okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing something. But they get overinflated and have too much power and then backfire. That's the big issue.
Well, and this goes into our culture. I mean, as you said this, it comes flooding back to me, everything that you said. Yeah, and I knew that you were, what do you call it, mixed race, family, whatever. And it would, I mean, I can't say it enough. Something was happening in the late 70s, all through the 80s and very early 90s. Whatever it was, Zero, they hated it. They didn't like it. So my next question to you as a deep thinker is this, and I got a couple more written down here. As I listen, I'll probably write a few more, and I'm definitely going to abuse you for 2 hours. I'll tell you the truth. The way I feel tonight, I'll abuse you until you're done, because you're nothing but gold for my channel. I just love having you here.
Oh, I'm glad my wife is not here to say that you want to abuse me. She might take hints.
So when we think about this, it's not only how can we get back to that, which I think that you've tried to answer, but I think that in your answer, it was your way of telling me there's no answer to it, because that was one of my questions. I just don't. I won't ask again because there's just no way. So
it has to happen. It'll get there when it gets there, and it's like being in a relationship. When you ask your husband, you ask your wife, you ask your significant other a question, and they genuinely say, I don't know. It's not because they're ignoring you. It's because they genuinely don't know, and that is an acceptable answer because they have no freaking clue, and
they don't know. In fact, I'll tell you, as I worked in, I was a preacher for a while. Worked in counseling as a psychologist. I shouldn't say that because I only had a master's, and you can't really say you're a psychologist unless you have a doctorate. But I worked as a counselor with that as my backing, that I had a master's in psychology. And it's always this big question to me, in my mind, and into many others. We've talked a little bit about culture and about why it's important. We've talked a little bit about the fact that it has changed and that we've both seen it change. I have said I'm demonstrating it changed. And yes, I know my friend is in a mixed race, but I forgot because it's really as important to me as nothing. It doesn't matter to me. I'm married also. Zero knows I'm married. I'm not sure if he knows the lineage of my wife, and I'm positive he don't give a fuck. about the lineage of my wife.
I'll be honest, Ogre. It's not that I don't give a fuck. It's none of my business.
Right. It really doesn't matter. The only thing we're talking about here is the fact that you can see if someone is dark skinned, or that's it. That's the only difference. So, right. Why? My question here is, as we're progressing on in this idea of culture and why things would change, it does seem like it's going a little toward race. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean it to go this way, but it is. It's going this way, and it's important. So, hear from someone that can speak with everyone saying, oh, you shut up, white man. Well, Zero can speak, because if he's a white man with a black girl and it's so terrible, well, obviously everywhere he goes with the black girl must be horrific, and he must get beat up in every parking lot. I can't even say that without laughing. I'm sorry. He must get beat up in every parking lot with it. So Zero,
you know,
why?
It's actually the point of people want to give me an attitude. My wife is more willing to slap them, because she'll sucker punch me like, I'm a black woman, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Right. I was gonna say, of course, because she's black, right? No, that was very funny, very funny. So here it is. Zero.
She loves doing it.
We've explored some things. So let me ask you this: why would people want it changed? I'm going to try to look up over the next week, and I want you to remind me of the statistics of black and white marriage. And I bet it's gone down. I would think that it's gone down now from the 80s. Why would people want it to change from a culture where your friend the ogre don't give a shit that your wife is black? The only thing I care about is that your wife loves you, takes care of you. And it is weird, because I did forget. I'm not even kidding.
It's flat out hypocrisy.
So why would someone want it to change? And please don't take your time. You take your time on this. Don't feel like you're rushed. Why on earth would someone want it to change?
It's strict hypocrisy. It's anything. It's basically attention whoring. The biggest issue that we've ever had in regards to black and white relations is how, well, we all know by human nature, and this isn't saying the whole thing about it, we know that we are afraid of that which is not familiar to us. But after the longest time of having folks in America be white and black skinned, we should be familiar to each other. We're always going to look a smidge different. Hell, everybody looks a smidge different. But there's always something of value within that. I'm going to bring up two people. I'm going to bring up Serena Williams, and I'm going to bring up Dwayne McDuffie. Unfortunately, Dwayne McDuffie is no longer with us. He was a phenomenal comic book writer. He helped create the Milestone universe, and he had a genuine love of storytelling and didn't give a damn if people were black or white, because one of his creations, which was Static Shock, he's seen kids cosplay as Static Shock in his sidekick, but he always wanted to see a white kid cosplay Static Shock. And when I started watching the Justice League cartoon back in the early 2000s, I'd never heard of Dwayne McDuffie. And then I saw him with Bruce Timm, and I was like, dude, dude was tall. The first thing I thought, wow, that dude's tall. But because he was so well-spoken, his attitude didn't suck, I never remotely, dude's black, okay, whatever. The same thing can be said about Serena Williams. She's a phenomenal tennis player. So is her sister. They're both total badasses in their sports, in their own rights. And they conduct themselves so professional in regards to what they do. And it's like, okay, Serena Williams is black, so what? You don't think about that stuff when you first hear about a person's name. When you see the person, you might naturally be taken aback, but you say, wow, this person's really good at what they do. And they aren't unfamiliar. You know what they look like, that's fine. Who cares? If they're black, white, tan, doesn't matter. My point is this. We have a man who created a comic book universe who people really learn off of, and we have a woman who has excelled in her field of sport, and they're both positive role models. And it's not because they're black, it's because their attitudes don't suck. That's the biggest thing. When you project yourself well and your attitude doesn't suck, people are going to be drawn to you. The same thing can be said to I can say the same thing about Taylor Swift, and I can say the same thing about Bruce Timm. Bruce Timm is a comic book writer. Taylor Swift is a musician. They're both really good at what they do. They both project themselves very well as people for what they do because they love what they do and they have a good attitude about it. And that inspires people, regardless of your skin tone, to want to go out and be a better person. They want to be the best person they can be. And this is what we need more of. That hasn't always been the way. It's always been because what we fear, we don't understand, we become, spiteful towards. Well, when you're in a neighborhood where there's half white, half black, and even a fraction of Latino and Asian, you don't have that problem. You're there as citizens of that town. You all have the same goals to get through childhood, have a good time, and grow into adults and be productive members of society. So, and that's because it took a lot of growing pains as Americans for us to get here. And the biggest issue is it's hypocrisy. Society is full of people that have genuine hatred towards themselves, where they think it's okay for, and this is where I'm glad my wife's not here, where it's okay if a black guy dates a white chick, but if a white guy dates a black chick, they automatically just go back to one of the darker times in our history, and it's kind of like, well, isn't that hypocritical? You think it's okay for you to do this over here, but it's not okay for this to do this over here. Shenanigans, I'm calling on it right now, pure shenanigans. When I married my wife, I brought her home to meet my parents, and the first thing my mom said to her, she goes, so, what do you do for a living? She goes, oh, well, I do this. And mom's like, all right. My dad says, what kind of car do you drive? They've always, up until their last car, they were always Ford people. Now they got a Toyota and they don't bitch. She goes, well, I drive a Ford, and she named her car. And he goes, okay. and then ironically, they went and got a Toyota. But so then my sisters looked at her and they go, yeah, you're going to be good to our brother, or are we going to have a problem? She's like, we'll get along fine. But that's, that's part of being a sibling. You just kind of look at your sibling's significant and you go, all right, buddy.
I love you, Zero, but I'm not going to let you ramble too much.
But that's basically what it breaks down to, is hypocrisy.
No,
we have too much of it.
All this is good. As I said, I was getting wrapped up in your dulcet tones also, and I realized we're getting off of culture. We're getting off, and it's because, look, the question at hand is this: why would someone want to kill this culture?
Hatred, self-hatred, if nothing else.
And you said
hypocrisy is a part of it. Hypocrisy is a part of that.
Yep. I wasn't saying you didn't answer it. I just wanted to remind everyone that you did answer it, and those were your answers. It was hypocrisy that they didn't like. So let me ask you this, Zero, if I may. Do you see? Well, I almost want to say this for last, but I'm going to say it now because I think this will give you a little bit of fodder. Could there possibly be a resurgence, or is the idea of? I mean, I ain't taking it back out of the thing, so I'll show this one. In fact, I know I'm not. Look, let me show you something else, Zero. Zero Cool. I just didn't want to blow my wad. I have a friend that I sent a book to, and he'll know what I'm talking about. Don't make a big. Like I said, we're not making a big deal on that. But I have a friend I sent a book to, and I almost sent this book also because I got a bunch like this, but this one wasn't nearly as old, and I knew that but it's like this. It was this one. The Legend of Barry, and it's
the Secret of Barry Allen.
Yep, and it's the whole. But when I look at that, what is it? What I'm asking you is this stupid thing, and man, I say that with humble respect. Will this thing? Is it gone? Is it gone? Will we ever have anything quite like this? And I'm not only pointing to comic books, because you know what, you and I, we get bashed, man. I've had people tell me, really, Mr. Ogre, is the only thing the man's going to do is reference comic books, sir. I'm like, well, it was a really good good reference, sir. It's referencing comic books. I was like, well, but the comic book, if you read the story, you'd see that it tied in, sir. How could a comic book tie into reality?
Comic books draw from reality. That's some of the best storytelling. Superheroes are the modern age gods of old Greek mythology.
Yes.
That's all there is to it. And that's
could you say that one more time, very clear?
Comic book heroes and villains are the modern interpretations of the old gods of Greek mythology.
Thank you. Very well said.
And believe me, there have been no endless run of philosophers and actual psychologists who point this out. In fact, George Lucas, for as much as I hate Star Wars now, based Star Wars off the archetypes of Greek mythologies and the heroes and villains. It just perpetuates itself. Will I think it ever will go away? No. Will I think it will change format? Absolutely. But that's the best part. We always have the defenders of the faith, so to speak, that keep those formats. So the comic book may go by the wayside. Storytelling may go by the wayside. We used to tell stories around campfires long before we had papyrus paper to print anything out on. That became modern bleached paper. So the format will always change, but the storytelling will always be there. That's part of any culture. America's culture is to actually have it, the printed word, the comic book, the novel. And when you take those away, you restrict a culture because you destroy its freedoms. And that's not acceptable.
I'll tell you. And I'm going to prod you a little bit. When we got time, I don't know. I'm going to go until you kick me off. I'll tell you what else. The fifth should be you, should be me, should be Common Sense Guy, should be Magic Bollocks, should be RPR, should be Sardonic 7, should be Weeaboo Jones. Did I already say Prankster Lock? Prankster Lock? Oh, man, it goes on and on. Now, all of us won't be on at the same time. I am going to stick with the 4. I'm going to stick with that, 0. And now I'm telling you again, you didn't know that it was this, but you're the reason I'm doing it. Because crosstalk, man. Once you get above 4, there's no possible. You either have people up there just for their icons. So we'll talk about that later because I realize now I'm jerking off.
Because I have a home inspection that day too.
Oh, and it's going to be the 5th. I thought you knew it was the 5th.
No, it is the 5th, and I knew, but I'm just hoping that my home inspection because I'm getting some basement work done, is like very early in the morning.
Oh, well, it's okay. It's going to be. We'll see. But in your time now, you're an hour behind me. It ain't going to be early. Ain't going to be early. In fact, it's still Weeaboo Jones is going to be the one if I can ever get a hold of that bitch. She's talking about. She sent out this thing. She's wondering why people don't. She's like, I want dick. I was like, well, Mrs. Jones, I bet your father is very appreciative. I don't know. The girl's nuts, is what I'm saying. She's crazy. I like her. She's funny. But she'll be the one that's going to come up with the time. I'm guessing, as a college student that is like, works and is a straight A student, as far as I know, it's probably going to be around starting at probably 5 to 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. And I'm going to go, I'm not going to say how long, like I said, because I tried like the 24-hour thing. I got so many kudos for the 24-hour thing. I got so many kudos for that, 0. And I didn't people thought I was live when I was playing reruns. And I even went back later.
You fucking fooled me. I was like, what the hell? You got Razor Fist on again and I'm not here?
Razor Fist.
Like, no,
so I did get
replay. I'm like,
other people were there. If you look at the overnight where I put Sargon on, where it was a rerun of Sargon, there was 300 and some people that watched that in the middle of the night. And I didn't even put his name. People just came by and seen Sargon talking, I guess. And boom. I've got other ones I think you were there. You were there with Razor Fist too. I will use that one too in the middle of the night if I do it. I'm not going to say it full out. No, I am going to. Fuck it. 0 cool. Probably once a month I'll be doing a 24-hour stream. But it will be the same kind of 24-hour stream I just did. I just have to have people like you. And look, I'm getting off culture. I have to have people like you and Common Sense Guy help me a little bit more. Because you know what I did? I didn't line people up.
Anyway.
I didn't. Well, yeah, we did. So we move on to something else.
I actually sent. I posted.
You did answer my last question though, right? As far as will this culture ever be replaced? And once you answer that, we'll move on to anything you want. And I got all the time in the world. So
I think it will, but it's a perpetual thing to where, like I said, we used to tell stories around the campfire. Now we tell them in books and movies and music. And it will be in some other format, and it will still be the same thing. It just continually replaces itself, and old will become new again.
Well, there you go. So that's the end of culture. I thank you so much too. Let's carry on. Let's crack on. You must have something on your heart. You're ready to move on from this. What is?
I wrote in chat. I said, "Are there any questions from the peanut gallery?" Because for as much as you and I love to talk, which we do, I really want some questions, not about me.
People out here.
Yeah, I want to hear from the people out there.
People out here listening to us.
I want to hear from the people out there.
You talking about this rabble? They don't fucking know nothing.
Yeah, they do.
They got no good. I've asked them many times. They got no good questions. These sons of bitches, all they want to do is sit back with their pina colada, whatever they're fucking shooting heroin, or whatever they're doing, and they listen kind of half-assed to it. They ain't gonna got no good. But if that's what Zero wants, if you got anything halfway smart to say, peanut gallery, well, I'm sure that Zero will take any of your questions.
Peanut gallery, can I get a 1 for the show Princess Buttercup some love?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put one in there right now myself, man.
Me too.
Yeah, I try to. I sent her a thing. Did I send her another dealio? Princess Buttercup. See if she can come. Can she come on with us right now? Do you mind? If I'm trying to send her another link. I don't think she can get on with her phone. I wanted her on earlier. I sent you a dealio, Princess Buttercup.
I enjoy conversing with Princess Buttercup. In fact, I enjoy conversing with everybody in the chat on Twitter or on YouTube because it's just. They're just a gaggle of fun people.
It's funny. Captain Cobile said we are the unwashed of Ogre's chat, and if you look, there's about half right now, a little less than half, about a third or so of what's normally here. And as I look, I'm not going to start calling out names now because I'm just agreeing with him. But you can see who's in the chat. It's all the Quinns and the Barclays and. It's all the hardcore. It's all the hardcore chaps, man. That really will, because we get a lot of people around here, Zero, and they say they stand up for this, that, and the other thing. But I ain't gonna lie, the people that I see out here right now, as the fly crawls across my camera, no, they're the ones that would really die for free speech. They're the crazy fuckers that are still here. So yeah, it's our 1%ers. It's our 1%ers. But so we'll move on. We're gonna move on from culture. I really do thank you, man. And I actually. You know what I want to do? I want to quit making it because I just realized how I said that. I want to quit making it like a show, Zero. The show's over. It was a great show earlier today. Great show tonight. If Zero Cool is fine with it, I think he's got some stuff on his mind like he already started trying to spout out before I cut him off and act like it was a show again. Maybe we'll do that. We're going to listen to some of your questions. And until we get them, Zero, I do have one more question for you. I'm part of the problem here.
You're part of the problem? Oh.
No, okay. For this question.
I think Ogre's part of the problem. I have no clue what he's talking about.
Well, for this question. So when, because it wasn't too long ago, it's like, as a farm boy, and tonight you made sure that you mentioned, I don't know much about farming. So just because you're from the Midwest, is that like calling you a nigger or a kike or a spick or whatever, wop or something, whatever I call you, farm boy? Should us people be more sensitive about Midwesterners and not just assume that all of them are driving tractors?
Oh, hell no. I don't give a shit. People can call me farm.
I know you don't give a shit, but I'm just asking as a general question, just a general question to you.
I think the biggest thing people need to remember is that in regards to the Midwest, we get called hicks or rednecks, which doesn't even technically apply. Though we do have a lot of boondocks, so I couldn't tell you about that. It's one of those things I don't really care. Not because
boondocks, I think, originated out where you're from. Yeah, but yes, you don't have any of the other things. There's no rednecks. There's no hicks there. Those are not from that area.
Talk about Montana. They got boonies beyond repair. But it's like anything else. It's just the word. It's just the name. I personally get a kick out of it. I love when people know that I'm from Iowa and they go, so what do you do out there in fun at Iowa? And I said, oh, what do we do for fun here in Iowa? Well, we strip down naked, we run bare-ass buck naked through a cornfield. And then we go home and watch Footloose, and then we drink our beer, act like an idiot, and then the track races.
Now, hang on, Zero. All right, we wanted something, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to pull this, and I told you what this rabble would do, this hardcore. They're all telling us right now how they're like, and they are, how they're hardcore ogreites, and this is the ogre army and everything else, and that's true, as the flies crawl across the clamor yet again. But you did ask for a question. And this is the closest thing that came. And I think your game, if I had to bet right now, I'd bet $50 your game on this. If you take this challenge, you got 5 minutes, though, man. You can't.
Oh, it's the Pepsi challenge.
So here you go. Ain't Jack says, I love sitting around as a kid listening to the old fables told by the adults and taking our turns telling stories we recently learned and ones of our own creation to be critiqued. He said that's what he'd like. So what I want to ask from you, sir, I don't think this will be a problem, or I wouldn't have asked. Come on, man. You got something like that? You got like a fable? And I'd fuck the 5 minutes. Just don't even worry about the time. Do you have a fable or a folk tale that you'd care to share?
Well, there's actually quite the few. In a town that is in the south, is 20 miles south of me, in a small town called Muscatine, Iowa. They actually, and unfortunately the thing got vandalized, and then they actually got pissed off about it, which is good. They used to have what was called the Blue Angel, and it was in their cemetery on Lucas Street. And I'd been there and I'd seen it. It's actually just a statue, and the light would refract a certain way in the mausoleum. And it had a whole bunch of things to do about nothing about that. But it was just a fable about dead spirits coming to visit every Halloween. But the big one is, and I got one more after this, and I'm going to screen share it when I type it up. It's called About the Black Angel. Behind the legends, the Black Angel of Oakland Cemetery in Iowa City, Iowa. And there's so many mythologies based around that, but I'm going to screen share it, so hopefully it'll play nice. You're
screen sharing right now. I've got you loaded up. If you want to, send me anything you want, and I can make it big for sure. But look, keep it real. Keep it real. Tell the story, though, Zero. And you said you got two. So if you got two, I've got one in between your two. And we'll both tell a fable. But if you got two, this is kick ass. This is what I'm talking about, culture. So screen share whatever you want. You're wide open. If it don't work out,
I sent you the link. I'll let you screen share it.
Gotcha.
Because
what do you want screen share? The angel?
Yeah, the Oakland Cemetery of Iowa City.
Okay.
Because it's very small, and there are pictures, and those pictures are actually very accurate. Now the story of the Black Angel dates back to the 19th century when Teresa Feldvert traveled to Iowa City from an area that is now known as the Czech Republic and Slovakia. And as you can see, this Wikipedia entry is very faithful to it. The biggest mystery is we don't know why the Black Angel is black, because originally it was meant to be white marble. And it somehow, as it says, and it's actually, it was supposed to be white marble, but they made it out of bronze, and it's oxidized, which is given its greenish black patina. But that's the urban legend, is that it was supposed to be white marble and it's bronze. You know, and that could be one of the very thing of butterfingering an order. But there's the biggest attraction, as it says, the biggest night of attraction is Halloween, where students and residents gather around the statue. Some test their luck by touching or kissing the statue, because it's supposed to have a death curse, by the way. And that is, they will be struck dead unless the person is still a virgin. That's the whole mystery about the whole thing. And that's one of the funner things.
So they go do that to see who's the virgin, who's not. And if you're not a virgin, you bloody die.
It's basically to be pure of heart.
That's cool.
So the two things about the Black Angel statue is, it was supposed to be originally white marble, but it is made of bronze. And if it was white marble and not really bronze, because you got to remember the records of creation are very inaccurate from the 19th century, how did it turn black? And as you can see, fuckers have vandalized the two thumbs there. And actually now they have armed guards every year around Halloween.
I just noticed that when you said that. The thumbs are missing.
Yeah, you actually had to break those off. There's no armed guards around that statue during Halloween, and the police do shoot on sight.
What kind of... oh, man. Let's carry on.
It's fucking juvenile delinquents. So the Oakland... And there's actually, if you choose to look up on... People choose to look up on Amazon or hunt this down about famous ghost stories in Iowa. Because we're in the Midwest, ghost stories always seem to be a little bit more creepier than as opposed to urban legends of New York or California. The second one is And I don't think that's actually on record. And I will look, but I remember living in a small town called Independence, Iowa. And we had an urban legend because they actually literally have, I suck at talking and typing.
Don't worry about it. I'll fill a little time for you. He's typing.
Yeah,
He's
okay, let me finish up.
typing. He's typing. He'll be back. He's right back.
So,
hey, look, this is some good stories. I've got a real story when he's done.
Okay, so here's the thing, and they're in Independence, Iowa. They literally have a state mental institution. If you are completely Looney Tunes, and that place goes back to Civil War times, and they also have one of the very last remaining old water mills, or where they would through the Wapsakana feed mill and dam from 1854. Now, I had visited. It's called the Mental Health Institute. It is actually not as scary as you think, but it's been around since the days of the Civil War, and you can actually go through in the main building on the very top floor, the actual old asylum where you used to see how people were restrained. And there was a legend called Abdul, and we never knew how this started, but it was the fact that he would roam around during the fall season, and he would hunt and gather the souls of children and take them to the old asylum in the main building. It probably didn't help that they actually had underground tunnels for transport, not because and that's post-Civil War stuff, but that was because the campus is so big, and to get between buildings, they would have underground tunnels for medical purposes. And it wasn't because anybody was literally insane. It was just an easier way, because the buildings being built how they were built, it's such a pain in the ass to go around and get through smaller doors over the years through the 1950s, 60s, and 70s after the structural changes. So they utilized the underground tunnels. And that really happened only during winter. And that's something that they don't, I don't know if they do the tours now, but at least when I was younger, they used to let you take the tours of the main building, and you wouldn't be able to go over to some of the others. But and they had their own independent airfield, and in those back lots, which is where the legend came from, Abdul was a person who died in a fire, haunted the children, and took them to the old insane asylum because he escaped from the main insane asylum in the main building and hid out in one of the children's wards, which burned to the ground. But the truth of that part is those old buildings were children's wards, and everybody moved to the big buildings after a long time. And the local Independence, Iowa Fire Department uses those for training. Just that's the shit that happens. But
all right, so it's my turn now?
Oh yeah, it's your turn.
Okay. You said you had two, so I'm only going to give you my one here.
That was the two.
That was the two. You said you had two. I
said two. There were two. I said the Black Angel and the Legend of Abdul from Independence, Iowa, and the insane asylum.
You linked them too much. No, fuck you. You gotta have one more after this one. I mean, let me just tell you this. This is a fable of Whistling Bill. I'll tell you a story here about Whistling Bill. And down the road a ways from me, there's an old holler tree where you lay down $1 or two. You walk up around the bend, and when you come back again, you find a jug of that good old Mountain Dew. And there's an old boy named Whistling Bill. And, man, he was just a boy. Used to help his daddy in the still. And did everything he was ever asked. They said he was a little slow, old Bill. He would come down. You'd hear him whistling. He'd just be whistling a tune. Always happy with a smile on his face, They throwed him out of school when he was about in the 5th grade, and they said he wasn't no good to anybody, and he could never learn anything. And it'd be best for him if he went up with his old daddy and learn how to make moonshine like all his other worthless kin before him. So Whistling Bill said, I'm going to go. Do what I got to do. And he learned the trade from his beloved daddy, taught him how to make the beer is what they call it, where they put the mash in and you make the beer. When it gets up to around 23, 24%, you run it through the still, man. They had a proper thump keg, everything you'd ever want. They run their life pretty good. And even though Whistling Bill never went to any kind of college or had any kind of wonderful luck like a lot of kids did, he had a good life. Daddy bought him a 30-30 lever action rifle one night. Said, "Here you go, son. So you know what, my beloved Billy, everybody says you're slow and you're dumb, but I'm giving you this. And you can see this, boy, it ain't for squirrels. You could always go take the 22 as you have and shoot all the squirrels you want. It's your rifle, son. Daddy loves you. Daddy give his life for you." You know, they worked many happy year there. Before you know it, though, one cold night, best to make moonshine in the cold. Problem is, it takes your beer longer to run. You get more beer in the summer than you do in the winter. And hopefully everybody's been paying attention. The beer is the mash. The heat helps it to ferment, you know. They were up there, man, and they was working. And Billy's watching the still, and he heard a little noise, and he go off in the woods, and he sees a revenuer. He's had his father there in the light. He was questioning his old man. "Where's the still, old man?" He said, "What do you know about no still? I ain't got no still up here." So "We know there's a still up here. We can smell the whistle." "We still up here?" He said, "Who told you there's a still up here? I ain't got nobody up here." Whistling Billy might have been dumb, but he wasn't so stupid as to break in on this. So before you know it, the father made a foul move. And apparently one of them revenuers thought the worst, and he sure enough drew down. And before you know it, Bill drew down without them seeing and shot 3 of them straight through the head. Boom, boom, boom. Revenuers lying dead, but he didn't know they was already surrounding the whole of the still, man. Had all of Montgomery County there just trying to take them down. And sure enough, everybody knows how the story is going to end, I'm sure, by now. Bill did a good standoff, man. And there was nothing he could do. They overwhelmed him. They shot down his father. They killed his uncle. Tore up the still after 3 long days up in the cut. Shot Bill down himself. But they do say down in Maggie Valley to this day, down where Popcorn Sutton cut his teeth, where my beloved father is buried and my mother dwells to this day, that when you go out in the dark night, man, when the moon is full and it's good moonshine weather, that you can still hear old Bill whistling that same tune. And well, I guess that's the end of my story. Don't give in to the man. Didn't you have another one?
Actually, no, I actually had the 2, but oddly enough, I don't know the full details. There is actually one in Muscatine, Iowa. It's called, there's a place called the Octagon House, and it's actually supposed to be haunted. I've traveled to Muscatine so many times in my life that I couldn't tell you if that thing was haunted or not. And oddly enough, it's right across from a McDonald's, and all the times I've ever been in McDonald's, nobody's ever seen it. You know, the lights go on when nobody was home kind of thing. So I couldn't really tell you about that. But I could tell you that one of the places that I do work is in Davenport, is at the local group home, and called Annie Wittenmeyer. I work with troubled youth on my own time, aside from my job. And that actually is, interestingly, it's not haunted, but it's really neat, because that was actually part of the Underground Railroad, and it was actually a Civil War hospital. And it's not haunted by any way, shape, or means. I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit. So I put out a link in the chat about Iowa's 10 most haunted places, and I also put it on my Twitter page.
I'm looking at that right now. So what are you going to tell us about that? Do you want me to open that up where everybody can see it?
Yeah, go ahead and open it. Some people said that you can't get the link and it doesn't work, but I just thought that was
right
the top 10.
No, I'm sorry. It says not found, error 404. Huh,
yeah, I don't understand why it says that. I can look. See, I can. Let me find
another way to type in top 10.
Let me screen share what I'm seeing.
Yes, do that. There you go. You're full on. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, right there. And I don't know why people can't see this. So I linked it on my Twitter for tonight only. And these are some of the places I've actually been through and I've never noticed. I live in Davenport. Hell, I didn't even know about Hotel Blackhawk. I've never been to Cresco. And Sioux City I very rarely get to. But number 6 is what I was talking about, the Independence State Hospital. And it began in 1873, but it did not open until 1883. The hospital has many names over the years, including the Independence Lunatic Asylum on its day, and it was laid out by the Kirkbride Plan, which meant the building was laid out with a staggering wing arrangement, which is, again, is why we have the underground tunnels there, which you can go through. The most violent patients were housed furthest away from the central administrative office buildings, which all that stuff has been moved to the very top floor. And that it is still in use today, although some parts are abandoned, which is basically everything about where the main building is at, because they do have wards there to help people, and they do have across the road, which is called the Cromwell unit, from my research, where kids can be of a certain age, both boys and girls, to deal with problems. And they're not Looney Tunes; they just have a lot of problems. It's a group home. That's the group home part. But as it says here, visitors have reported feeling cold drafts, hearing whispers, and feeling of being watched. Others have seen shadows and heard screams in the empty halls at night. Apparitions of former patients and staff are also seen in buildings on the grounds of the hospital, which is another reason why that's closed off to the general public and only staff people work there. And nobody is there really after 6 o'clock at night after regular business hours.
All right, now, damn it, I'm thinking of another one because Ain't Jack already said that mine sucked and that he was more thinking along the lines of the old lady and the hungry tiger. And I know what that story is too, Ain't Jack, damn it. So what I'm saying is, to hell with Ain't Jack. I love this, what you brung up here, Zero, and I know you, dude, whether you're willing to do it or not, or you think you can do it or not, it's not a ghost story. I made that last one up if it wasn't obvious off the top of my head. I didn't even try to think back to a ghost story. I will now give him a story like that if you got one. If not, I'll let you go on with this 10 scary
You're
thing.
cutting out. I can't hear you.
Okay, so I think that might mean fuck you. We'll just go on with this 10 things. You really can't hear me?
No, you're roboting.
Okay, how about now?
Still roboting.
Telling you, dude, I'm gonna just restart everything. Unless you can hear me now, I'm just gonna restart everything again. My fucking internet service.
How about you leave and come back in?
Hello? Were you just utterly silent that whole time? Hi, Zero. Well, anyway, I guess there's nothing going on. I'm trying to get this back together. If anyone can hear me.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh. So if I die, you just like go take a piss or something?
Yeah, you died, so I peed.
Okay, all right. Well, that might have been utter silence or what, but that it was simply a breakdown for Zero, and all I got to say to anybody that don't like it, well, it's an average show. What do you want, man? We're just having a good time, and we're glad you're here with us. But this is more or less kind of like a fun time with me and Zero that we've invited you to. So, where were we at, Zero? Was this, where were we going? Where were we going with this? I got plenty.
Well, I think you wanted me to regale you with a homemade.
I did it, and then you don't have to make it up now. Don't make it up.
I don't have anything. That's all I'm going to tell you. I got nothing.
So I tried it like on the spot, but if you get another fuck, it don't matter. You brought up some cool stuff anyway. You know what it is? It's my fault, Zero. And that is it's easy to assume that someone that can speak well could just, and it's not always the case, man. I'll say this: you did come up with some stuff, and let's do this. Screw everybody. I've got one more story when we're done with this. Let's look at these things that you started with, the 10 scariest places. And I kind of want your input on this. When you talk about this, do you think it's possible? I think of DD drunk and dumb drunk fuckers, ghost hunters. But do you think it's possible that, do they hear voices? Is something going on in these places?
I think anything's possible. I think that Kurt Russell said it best as Jack Burton. And I'm paraphrasing here. It says that I think that would be kind of stupid or foolish to think that we're all alone in this universe, whether it be spiritual or not.
Well, very true. I agree with that. Anybody that thinks that like we're unique, there's nothing going on in this whole. I would say that's a little naive. So for you then, if I can't regale you, if you can't regale us with a supernatural made-up story in your head or related from someone else you heard, what's the most supernatural situation you've been in that you care to share with us? I'll share one with you.
Oh, the most supernatural situation I've ever been in?
Yeah, where you were like, you really felt like you.
When I first bought my house. No, that's not even remotely true. It is true, but it's not remotely. I had a friend who lived about 10 blocks away from me a while back, and I won't say her name, rest her soul. I'm still friends with her children. And after she was taken from us in a very bad manner, I would drive by my way to work would require me to drive by the house. And it's one of those things that every time I looked at the house, I was angry at the house because of what happened to her and because of the idiot who did it. And while the kids, they've moved on with their life, but every year on Facebook, I get links to say, hey, yearly passage of our mom. And I was like, yeah, And I went to college with her, and I had a date with her 2 or 3 times, and she was a very wonderful woman. And for the longest time, I was really angry at the house, and every time I drove by that house, I would get a chill up my spine. And it was just the fact of losing a memory of a damn good friend and a loved one. And then one day, I see a for sale sign on that house. And I'm looking at it, and not only could I not believe they were selling it, I swear, for as much as I'm talking right now, I swore I saw her staring out the window, waving to me and blowing me a kiss, because that was one of the things that she did. She was a very loving individual. She loved to give you hugs.
So I don't want to cut the story, but so when you say you looked in the window, if you would describe that to us, was it a vague reflection of something ambiguous? Did you see a human there?
Let's put it this way in modern terms. Did you know how they had the holograms in Star Wars with Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're on That's what it looked like.
So like a thing that you look at, you see the I know what you mean. Hopefully everyone else knows what you mean is with a hologram.
Okay, so let's put it this way: if anybody has seen Star Wars, where the hologram comes out of R2D2, and Princess Leia says, "Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're on Obi-Wan, help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're on only." That's what she looked like. That color, that like it was a hologram, but it wasn't hologram. I'm just gonna share one last thing before we close out. The weirdest thing I've ever had in regards to spiritual is after my uncle died. For a long time, I was very pissed off, and my wife didn't want to deal with me. So I had a dream one night where it was a very Scooby-Doo setting, to where for some reason I'm underground in a Scooby-Doo type setting, and my uncle's literally sitting right next to me. And he just looked like himself. You know, it wasn't like the whole thing where Obi-Wan Kenobi was a ghost with the Force or anything. He's just sitting next to me. He says, "Dade, you need to let this go. I know I was important to you and that you are hurt that I'm gone, but I need you to let this go. Let go of the anger and get on with your life because it's doing you no good." I